Non-resistance against arbitrary power is absurd. A constitutional declaration. Fear. Many of us are uncomfortable confronting government servants, legislatures, governors, mayors, etc. Why? Because of our lack of knowledge and understanding on how our government was established and what our role is supposed to be. This has been hidden from the people intentionally. If we fear something, we will not confront it. Let's see what our state constitutions says about this. Government was instituted for the people's benefit. This is from the New Hampshire Constitution, Part 1, Article 10. Let's see what it says. Government, being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community, and not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted, and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right, ought to reform the old or establish a new government. The doctrine of non-resistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind. Arbitrary power versus constitutions. Arbitrary power is power depending on will or discretion. It's not governed by any fixed rules. It's an unruly conduct, or it's doing what they want and not following established laws. Our constitutions are trust agreements between the people and public servants. Their oath of office binds them to this agreement, and they have to follow the rules of the constitutions. We have 50 state constitutions and one federal constitution. The statutes created by the legislatures are corporate bylaws to regulate government operations, not the free will of the people. Government servants are bound to the state and federal constitutions as well as their own statutes. Henry Clay was Secretary of State between 1825 and 1829. He said, "Government is a trust, and the officers of the government are trustees, and both the trust and the trustees are created for the benefit of the people." Do we have security and protection? How is an open border policy providing security for our nation? Government is instituted for the common benefit, security, and protection of the community as a whole. This is currently not being fulfilled. Is our government perverted? Perverted means turned from right to wrong, distorted, corrupted, misinterpreted, or misemployed. Has our elections and overall government been distorted, forced out of true posture or direction? Has our elections and overall government been corrupted, depraved, spoiled, marred, bribed, infected with errors? Has our elections and overall government been misinterpreted and misemployed, used to no purpose or to a bad one? Public liberty. Is our liberty being manifestly endangered? Liberty is the power of the will to follow the dictates of its unrestricted choice and to direct the external acts of the individual without restraint, coercion, or control from other persons. It includes and comprehends all personal rights and their enjoyment. It embraces freedom from duress, freedom from governmental interference in exercise of intellect, in formation of opinions, in the expression of them, and in action or inaction dictated by judgment. Has our government tried to enforce shutdowns, mask and vaccine mandates, and worked with social media outlets to censor free speech? Our guaranteed right to redress. In the Maine state constitution, from Article 1, Section 15, it states, "The people have a right at all times, in an orderly and peaceable manner, to assemble to consult upon the common good, to give instructions to their representatives, and to request of either department of the government by petition or remonstrance, redress of their wrongs and grievances." Redress of grievances. Grievance means that which burdens, oppresses, or injures, implying a sense of wrong done or a continued injury. Redress means to set right, to provide relief and remedy or deliverance from wrong. Remonstrance means a formal protest against the policy or conduct of the government or of certain officials drawn up and presented by aggrieved citizens. Ineffectual redress. Have other means of redress been ineffectual? Have Secretary of State's, Board of Supervisors, and governors all ignored our requests for election audits? Have courts dismissed cases for election fraud and misconduct? Yes to all. The people's efforts. Since 2020, people have called and emailed their public servants demanding answers and correction. They have showed up at council meetings, board meetings, testified in front of legislatures, and spoken out against the crimes that ensued during the 2020 election and now the 2022 elections. People have spoken out regarding the shutdowns and mandates enforced against our liberties across the nation. People have filed suits, petitions, and submitted notices and affidavits giving instructions to our elected servants stating our grievances, calling for redress, and giving remonstrance to government officials on all levels, county, state, and federal. Our right to reform. In the Iowa Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, it states, "All political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit of the people, and they have the right, at all times, to alter or reform the same whenever the public good may require it." In the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, it states, "All political power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. The faith of the people of Texas stands pledged to the preservation of a Republican form of government, and subject to this limitation only, they have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such manner as they may think expedient." And these two constitutional articles apply to everyone in all states. In fact, almost all 50 states has some wording regarding we have the right to alter, reform, or abolish our government. The people. In the state's Bill or Declaration of Rights, it is stated with clarity who it is that has the power over government servants. Here are some examples. Missouri Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 says that all political power is vested in and derived from the people, that all government of right originates from the people, is founded upon their will only, and is instituted solely for the good of the whole. Vermont Constitution, Chapter 1, Article 6, that all power, being originally inherent in and consequently derived from the people, therefore all officers of government, whether legislative or executive, are their trustees and servants, and at all times, in a legal way, accountable to them. And you only have a trustee when there is a trust agreement in effect. Nonresistance is absurd, slavish, and destructive. In the New Hampshire Constitution, Part 1, Article 10, it stated, "The doctrine of nonresistance against arbitrary power and oppression is absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind." Do you understand now why the Founding Fathers wrote this in our Bill of Rights? Let's recap. Government was created by the people. Government is accountable directly to the people. The people have every right to notify government servants when things go wrong, to give instructions to government servants demanding corrective action for the benefit of the people, and to expect them to act expediently. That's known as redress of grievances. Gaining understanding. When you understand that the people rule over the government and they are accountable to us, the people, it makes it easier to stand up against their wrongdoings. Gaining knowledge is empowering. You also need to understand that the constitutions declare that it is a lawful right and ability of the people to alter, reform, or abolish existing government when it becomes perverted. In closing, the Founding Fathers considered it absurd, slavish, and destructive of the good and happiness of mankind to have a doctrine of non-resistance to a perverted government. You have every right to instruct and correct government trustees as one of the people, and collectively we have a lawful right to alter, reform, or abolish existing government whenever it becomes perverted. The law states it. It is the people's right, duty, and obligation to instruct, correct, and reform government whenever it becomes destructive to the good and happiness of mankind. Quotes from Founding Fathers. John Hancock stated, "Resistance to tyranny becomes the Christian and social duty of each individual. Continue steadfast and with a proper sense of your dependence on God, nobly defend those rights which heaven gave and no man ought to take from us." Patrick Henry stated, "The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interest." Quote by John Adams. Now, John Adams was very involved as a founding father. He was a delegate to the Continental Congress from 1774 to 1777. He was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was the Chief Justice of the Superior Court of Massachusetts in 1775. He was the first Vice President under Washington in 1789 to 1797. And he was the second President of the United States from 1797 to 1801. Listen carefully to what he says. Government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people, and not for profit, honor, or private interest of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, the people alone have an incontestable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to institute government and to reform, alter, or totally change the same when their protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness require it. Thank you for listening. Please share this with others.